Okay, Mike Bettis and Dr. Greg Forbes of the Weather Channel joining us. And after something as devastating and horrific as the Greenberg tornado, why in the world are people choosing to stay there and going through this process? And speak on the resiliency of folks that live in Tornado Alley.
Well, I think it's one of those things, John, where, if this has been your home your entire life, you don't know any other place. And so people want to stay here. They want to rebuild. They want to see their community, back to its vibrant self again. And I think one of the unique things about Greensburg is they've decided to rebuild eco-friendly. And so, for instance, the home behind us here, it's got all neat, unique, different features in it. It's got recycled materials in it, energy-efficient appliances, compact fluorescent bulbs. But at the same time, it's also a lot more structurally sound than the previous home. If you notice, it has a split dome feature to it, and so the rounded features to it actually deflect wind around it somewhat, so it's a little bit more sustainable during a tornado.
And you've kind of anticipated my next question. They're being very proactive in Greensburg in the sense that they're learning to live with their environment. They can't move Greensburg out of Tornado Alley. So those are some of the innovations that are taking place. Do you anticipate that possibly this is a case-by-case basis, or will contractors perhaps utilize this across the board in folks that live where tornadoes occur?
I think more and more they're trying to build, especially in places where tornadoes have occurred, to be more tornado resistant, and in this case both also energy resistant. Here they're using specially designed panels, SIPs, structural insulated panels, that are both energy friendly as well as pretty tornado resistant. They've been able to shoot 2x4s at them moving 130 miles per hour, and they just bounce off. And wind-wise, they're designed to withstand about 200 miles per hour. So the home behind us is built with that. So they save money on energy, and they're safer in tornadoes.
Wow, that's interesting. I tell you what, it's Tornado Week on the Weather Channel. One of the one of the stories that are featured on Tornado Week is the one that nearly hit Aurora last year. My question is, last year we got off kind of a slow start tornado season. It didn't occur until really about mid-June. And there's some talk that given the weather patterns carrying over from this winter, that perhaps most of the activity this spring could possibly be to the east of Tornado Alley. Could you speak on that, Dr. Forbes?
Well, certainly we've been off to a slow start so far. I've been attributing a lot of that to the fact that we had a cold winter. A lot of cold air intrusions got down into Florida, into the Gulf of Mexico, made the Gulf fairly cold to start with, and that has been giving less, what we usually say, the warm, moist air off the Gulf of Mexico. Well, it hasn't been very warm and moist so far, so we've only had about half the average number of tornadoes so far. I'm expecting that to change as we get into especially later April and May. There's been some studies that in the past the activity has been a little bit farther east in years like this, but I'm not sure that that holds in every year. So I think we need to be prepared that it's going to get active, and probably we'll have a more active spring and early summer this year than we did last.
Well, this year is the 30th anniversary of a devastating tornado we had here in Nebraska, similar to that of Greensburg, a huge parent system that spawned 7 tornadoes that just sat and spun and ripped up the city, 2 of those spinning in the opposite way that tornadoes typically spin. Your mentor, somebody you studied with, Dr. Ted Fujita, came here to study that storm. What do we learn from massive systems such as the one that hit Greensburg, Manchester, and Grand Island in the aftermath of storms such as that?
Yeah, well, a couple of things from that Grand Island tornadoes. One was very much like Greensburg, that tornadoes don't always move in straight lines. They made, in the Grand Island case, U-turns, the very same type of thing. It was heading in almost the opposite direction for Greensburg, but made a U-turn up to the northwest side of the town. The other thing was that often on the flanks of big counterclockwise rotating tornadoes, you'll have clockwise, what we call anticyclonic tornadoes, and Grand Island case was a good example of that. There was some pretty strong, a couple of anticyclonic tornadoes not far from the big counterclockwise cyclonic tornadoes.
Tornado Week on the Weather Channel all week long. We are going to be following every single one of those stories, and your next location, I understand, is out in Iowa. Is that correct?
That's right. We're going to pack up here. We're going to head over to Parkersburg, Iowa. We remember it was 2008 that Parkersburg was hit by an EF5 tornado there. So we're going to bring you the story of the residents there and how they're back on their feet again, trying to rebuild their community, much like they are here in Greensburg.
All right, Tornado Week. This week on the Weather Channel, we'll be focusing on those stories along with the Aurora tornado. Thanks for joining us today, guys.
Thanks.